We begin not with a contract signing, but with a paradox. Lewis Hamilton, a seven-time world champion who built his modern-era legacy in silver, now sits in red. A Ferrari driver with 0 podiums 11 races into the season, yet holding more contractual power than perhaps any driver in the modern era. At the Hungarian Grand Prix, Hamilton's words cut deeper than any headline could. "I'm useless," he admitted after qualifying 12th, while Charles Leclerc put the sister SF25 on pole. But the cameras didn't catch the most extraordinary twist, that behind the disappointment, Hamilton holds a clause that could keep him in Maranello until 2027 regardless of results. It's not speculation. It's been reported in detail by La Gazzetta dello Sport. Ferrari cannot terminate him, cannot block the extension, cannot even renegotiate. If Hamilton chooses to stay, Ferrari must accept it. And in a sport where contracts are often brutal instruments of business, drivers discarded mid-season, rookies replaced before they've unpacked their helmets, this is an inversion of Formula One power dynamics. Why would Ferrari gamble on such a clause, especially for a driver struggling to match his teammate? The answer lies 2 seasons ahead, in 2026. A regulation overhaul that will wipe the technical slate clean, from chassis architecture to power unit efficiency, from aerodynamic regulations to ERS deployment strategies. Ferrari's gamble is that Hamilton is not just a driver for today, but an architect for tomorrow. But here's where the intrigue deepens. This clause works both ways. Hamilton could also walk away after 2026 if the rebuild fails, leaving Ferrari with an empty seat and a mountain of wasted political capital. That's why the next 14 months are not simply about race results. They're about whether Maranello can transform fast enough to justify Hamilton's commitment. Because in Formula One, control is only as valuable as the machine beneath you. To understand why this clause is so unusual, you have to step back and see the bigger picture of Ferrari's modern history. The team's last Drivers' Championship came in 2007, when Kimi Raikkonen edged Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso by a single point. Since then, Maranello has cycled through some of the most gifted drivers of the era: Alonso, Sebastian Vettel, and now Charles Leclerc, each arriving with the same promise Hamilton carried this year, to be the one who finally ends the drought. Each left without a title, carrying the weight of what-ifs and near misses. Ferrari's problem hasn't just been speed, it's been timing. Rule changes have historically caught them mid-cycle. In 2025, Frederic Vasseur is trying to break that cycle, but he's doing it with a car that still suffers from the same chronic weaknesses as its predecessors. Inconsistent tyre degradation, narrow setup windows, and a sensitivity to track temperature that makes race day performance unpredictable. And here comes Hamilton, at 40 years old, stepping into a culture that has chewed up and spit out champions younger than him. The clause keeping him in control is essentially Ferrari betting that the next big regulation reset, the 2026 technical overhaul, will finally align with their internal restructuring. The heart of Ferrari's gamble isn't in the PR-friendly idea of experience. It's in Hamilton's track record of shaping a car from blueprint to podium. In 2026, Formula One will undergo its most dramatic technical shift since the hybrid engines were introduced in 2014. The internal combustion engine output will drop, placing greater emphasis on electrical power deployment from the MGU-K, with revised limits on maximum energy recovery and redeployment per lap. These changes will demand a car that is inherently well-balanced, with predictable behavior across a wide range of track conditions. Sources within Maranello suggest Hamilton has already submitted detailed feedback packages to the design department, focusing on aero efficiency and high-speed trim and improving stability during heavy braking, an area he's found lacking in the SF25. These aren't requests you make if you're thinking only about the next race. These are demands from someone thinking about how to beat Max Verstappen's Red Bull in a completely different regulatory landscape. The clause isn't just a safety net for Hamilton. It's a framework that forces Ferrari to follow through on this collaboration, even if short-term results in 2025 remain underwhelming. Ferrari agreeing to a one-sided extension clause wasn't just a contractual decision. It was a calculated political move. In the modern paddock, leverage usually sits with the team. But Hamilton entered Maranello with a reputation not just as a race winner, but as a championship operator. Ferrari knew that to lure him away from Mercedes, a team where he had built deep trust, enjoyed stable leadership, and had influence over car direction, they would need more than a competitive salary and the allure of the prancing horse badge. Inside Maranello, this clause serves a dual purpose. Outwardly, it signals to sponsors and fans that Ferrari is committed to Hamilton long-term, giving the impression of stability heading into the 2026 reset. Behind closed doors, it locks in Hamilton's participation in the early phases of the new car's development, preventing rival teams from poaching his input during the most sensitive design cycles. Strip away the politics and emotion, and Formula One is still a numbers game. And the math around Hamilton's situation is as unforgiving as it is revealing. 11 races into 2025, Hamilton sits well outside realistic title contention. In contrast, Leclerc's stronger qualifying form has kept him in the conversation for podiums and occasional high-scoring weekends, which only widens the intra-team points gap. But here's where the clause changes the usual calculus. For Hamilton, it simply shifts the focus entirely to 2026, the year that matters. From a championship projections standpoint, the 2026 reset offers a unique statistical reset. In the last major overhaul, in 2014, Mercedes leapt from a single win in 2013 to utter dominance, winning 16 of 19 races. However, the window is small. Hamilton will be 41 at the start of the 2026 season, and while his fitness and racecraft remain elite, the statistical reality is that no driver has won a world championship past the age of 40 in the modern era. If Ferrari's 2026 hopes rest on Hamilton's guidance, their rivals are making sure that any advantage he brings is met with equal or greater force. Red Bull, already masters of maximizing new regulations, are quietly working on a chassis concept that insiders suggest will push the limits of the revised underfloor rules. Mercedes, meanwhile, have their own revenge arc. Losing Hamilton to Ferrari was more than just a driver change. It was a public statement that their 7-time champion believed the grass might be greener elsewhere. For Toto Wolff and his technical team, 2026 is their chance to prove him wrong. And then there's McLaren. With Lando Norris hitting his prime and Oscar Piastri rapidly maturing into a consistent threat, the team from Woking sees 2026 as a golden window. The next 14 months will define whether Hamilton's Ferrari chapter becomes a redemption arc or a cautionary tale. The clause ensures he has the choice to see 2027 in red, but the decision will hinge on more than just lap times. The 2026 car's initial test sessions, even the first simulator runs in late 2025, will offer the clearest signal of whether the rebuild has real teeth. If Ferrari rolls out a chassis that's inherently well-balanced, efficient in straight-line speed, and predictable in tyre behaviour, Hamilton may see 2027 as a final shot at cementing his legacy in scarlet. But if early feedback points to another year of compromises, he may opt to walk, sparking a driver market chain reaction that could reshape the grid. But the biggest implication is psychological. If Ferrari delivers a winning car in 2026, Hamilton won't just be chasing an 8th title. He'll be chasing a historic achievement, becoming the first driver in nearly 2 decades to bring the championship back to Maranello. If they fail, the same contract that gave him ultimate control will feel less like a masterstroke and more like a slow countdown to a mutual separation. Either way, by mid-2026 the answer will be clear. Hamilton stays to finish what he started, or he leaves with Ferrari's rebuild unfinished and his final Formula One chapter left open-ended. In the end, the Hamilton clause is more than just a legal quirk buried in the fine print of a Ferrari contract. It's a statement of intent. Ferrari's drought since 2007 isn't just a statistic. It's a weight that hangs over every car, every pit stop, every strategy call. Looking ahead to 2026, the ingredients for a breakthrough are there. A regulation reset, a driver with unmatched development pedigree, and a team showing signs of cultural evolution under Vasseur's leadership. If they get it right, Hamilton could achieve something no driver has managed in the modern era. Leave one dynasty, rebuild another, and win titles with 2 of the most iconic teams in the sport's history. For now, all we can do is watch the pieces move. The simulator work, the winter development, the careful political balancing between Hamilton, Leclerc, and the next generation waiting in the wings. Because when the lights go out in Bahrain, 2026, we'll know almost immediately whether Ferrari's gamble was genius or folly.